Good morning, everyone. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen from India, and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen from Philippines. Welcome to the third day of India ASEAN Pharma Business Meet. Today, we are having a session on India Philippines pharmaceutical cooperation and regulatory developments. We are happy to say that 52 Indian companies from India side and 33 companies from Philippines have joined today, and it gives me immense pleasure to welcome you all for the meeting today. And the dignitaries present today was graced the program today. We are joined by Ms. Sindhu Nair, Director, Department of Commerce, Mr. Subbarao, Vice President, Exports, NATCO Pharma, and Mr. Nishikant Singh, First Secretary, Embassy of India. And we'll be having the presence of His Excellency, Mr. Shambhus S. Kumaran in a little while. So, welcome you all to the program. While we have some of the speakers who have shared the pre-recorded messages, see, we will be, during their turn, we will be playing their pre-recorded messages. So thank you once again for joining us. Now we'll start the program. I invite Mr. Uday Bhaskar, Director General Pharmaxil, to kindly give his address on Indian pharmacy industry and vaccine opportunities and prospects. Sir, I kindly invite you to give your address. Thank you.
Thank you, Anhad and Murli. Good morning, everyone, and I welcome Mrs. Indu Nair, Director, Department of Commerce, Government of India, and Mr. Nishikant Singh, First Secretary, Embassy of India in Philippines, and Mr. Subbarao, Vice President, Exports, NATCO Pharma. Distinguished guests and delegates, good morning, everyone. Really, I'm very much delighted to present about the capabilities of Indian pharmaceutical industry as well as the vaccine industry. So my talk is going to be very brief, and I'll discuss few points and strengths. Particularly, I'll emphasize more on vaccine industry. So I'm also thankful to His Excellency for putting their efforts and making this program a reality, and I'm also thankful to Minister of Commerce and Mrs. Sindhu Nair, who is in charge of ASEAN from Commerce Ministry side. Anhad, can I have my presentation? So my presentation is on Indian pharma and vaccines, opportunities and prospects. Next slide, please. Pharmaceuticals Export Promotion Council of India is formed under foreign trade policy in the year 2004 with an objective to facilitate the exports of Indian pharmaceuticals and allied products. We have more than 4,800 members registered with the council. Next slide, please. Popularly, India known as a pharmacy of the world. We were exporting drugs to more than 200 countries, and India is the third largest exporter of formulations by volume and 10th by value. 9 out of 25 global generic companies are from India. And over 55% of our exports to highly regulated markets and 90% of WHO pre-qualified APIs are sourced from India. We have highest number of US FDA approved facilities outside US, and equally we are very strong in EU GMP. Particularly during COVID times, India exported HCQ, paracetamol, and other antiviral drugs which are used in the treatment of COVID-19 to more than 150 countries. Next slide, please. Just I would like to share the reason why pharma exports to the members who are present here. Our largest exporting region is North America and followed by Africa and EU. ASEAN is our fifth largest exporting the destination. And if you see our top 10 exporting destinations, uh, almost 90% of the countries are highly regulated and economically strong, and their health indicators are also at a very high level. That it shows that India is not only catering to the needs of underdeveloped countries and third world countries, where more than 50% were exporting to developed markets. So last financial year 1920, we exported 20.58 billion US dollars worth of drugs to different countries with 7.57% growth. And I'm very happy to share that in the financial year 21, particularly in these 10 months, April to January, during the peak COVID times, we already exported $19.58 billion worth of drugs with a 12.46% growth. So here I would like to say that, in normal circumstances, we have recorded only 10%, 11%, and 7%. But particularly during this pandemic, we recorded 12.46%, and this is very positive. And in the days to come, also India is going to cater the needs of the entire world in delivering the goods at the right time at a very affordable price. I'm very optimistic that we are going to touch 25 billion in the financial year 21. Our exports to ASEAN is almost 13 1 billion US dollars, and in April January we recorded a very significant growth on par with our total exports, that is 13.74% the growth rate. Next slide, please. If you see our exports to Philippines, the Philippines market size is 3.4 billion US dollars, and the generic market share is almost 50%, 47.5% of the total market. Exports to Philippines in the financial year 20 is 263.92 million with 9.96% growth rate. Financial year 21, again, particularly in the 10 months of peak COVID times, April, January, we have already exported 247 million US dollars worth of drugs with 13.23% growth rate. So the growth rate almost to ASEAN as well as the Philippines and the entire Indian pharmaceuticals export growth is almost around 12 to 13%. But if you see the vaccine exports in the financial year 20, it is 16.31 billion US dollars. Financial year 21, April, January, we have already exported 27.82 million US dollars with a 70.6% growth rate. So it's a very bright spot. Particularly the reason for such a growth is that WHO and so many NGOs are telling that during COVID, general immunization program kept aside by most of the countries. That's why the exports are dipping. At the same time, in November 2020, the WHO commended the Philippines Department of Health for continuation of its polio vaccine program during the fight against the COVID-19 pandemic. Almost 90-95% of the countries have stopped the general immunization program, and they focused more on COVID. So this everyone should appreciate the proactive approach in simultaneously addressing the chronic problems of issues in continuing that polio vaccine by Philippines. Philippines is our top importing partner, and we stand number one. After India, there are Germany and other countries are there. It clearly shows that we are day by day we are our relations and our business between both the countries are becoming strong. So I would like to emphasis more on Indian vaccine industry and its global contribution. Particularly, everybody is talking about everybody is talking about the vaccines, particularly the COVID-19 vaccines. India have large number of vaccine manufacturers capable of supplying 3 billion doses per annum. So India is known for producing high volume vaccines, and WHO pre-qualified vaccine supplies to 125 countries. And vaccine exports in the financial year 20, we exported 817, almost 818 million US dollars. Financial year 21, April, January, 648.64 million US dollars. That is mainly due to most of the immunization programs are in the sidelined, and people are not focusing on that. So that is the reason for a marginal dip in our exports of vaccines in the last 10 months. 70% of WHO vaccine requirements are sourced from India, and 90% of WHO demand for measles vaccines is sourced from India. So Anhad, just you go to the next slide, Anhad. I think you, yeah, that. So the DCVMS, that is in developing countries vaccine manufacturers. Particularly, they have an association and are key in all regions, dominating in Africa region, Eastern Mediterranean region, Southeast Asia region, and Western Pacific region. Next slide, please. These are the categories of vaccines manufactured by India, and these are the list of manufacturers. So we're manufacturing more or less all the vaccines which acts against bacteria and against virus, and we're also producing veterinary vaccines. So if you see on the right side of my slide, right side of the slide, we have companies like Serum Institute, Biologically, Bharat Biotech, Zydus Kerala, and all these companies are capable of producing different kind of vaccines. And India is day by day is becoming very strong in developing vaccines and meeting the global requirements. Next slide, please. In the COVID times, actually times of COVID-19, we have already exported 58 million doses of COVID vaccine supplied to more than 70 countries, and the other countries also asking for Indian vaccines, including the developed countries like Canada and other countries are also asking for Indian-made vaccines. The Serum Institute of India has manufacturing agreement with AstraZeneca, and they developed the Covishield vaccine, and they have an order to supply 100 million doses to Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. The Bharat Biotech is one of the Indian the companies who are in collaboration with the ICMR and National Institute of Virology has developed a indigenous vaccine. This is and both the vaccines are in the market, and Indian population also taking these vaccines, and we are already, as I have mentioned, that we have already exported 58 million doses. So the other big companies like Indian Biologically, Dr. Reddy's, Zydus Cadila, Aurobindo, Mankind, Hetero, and all these people are working on vaccines, and they are also using the facilities of other Indian big companies and they are closely working with the international organizations in developing these vaccines. And I'm very optimistic that in the days to come, India can able to meet the global requirements of producing more number of vaccine at this point of time. I would like to stress upon that all these years we are manufacturing and exporting generic formulations. But if you see the vaccine front, particularly the Bharat Biotech, ICMR, NIV collaboration, it's 100% indigenous, and we sent a strong message to the world. We are not confined only to manufacture generic formulations. We are equally capable of producing new drugs. This is all Indians should feel proud of it, and I'm very happy to share this information with all my friends over here. Next slide, please. So, I think His Excellency Ambassador is emphasizing more on the oncology side, and we have also have a very eminent speaker from NATCO and the vaccines. If the Indian Embassy and our friends from the Philippine side, if they needed a special talk on vaccines, certainly we'll invite good vaccine manufacturers and we have a separate session on this. With this, I'm very much thankful to Mr. Nishikant Singh for actively coordinating this event, and I'm also thankful to Commerce Ministry for supporting us. I hope the coming deliberations certainly is going to be a value addition to the participating member companies and to develop their business. And I'm also thankful to Dr. Rolando Enrique Domingo, Director FDA Philippines, for accepting and sending his message. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Uday Bhaskar, Director General Pharmaceutical, for your presentation on the vaccines and the prospects and the way forward for India and Philippines. Now, moving forward, we have a special address on overall framework on drug registration in the Philippines by Dr. Rolando Enrique Domingo, who is the Director General Foods and Drugs Administration Philippines. Due to his last-minute engagement, he could not join us, but however, he has shared his video message. I would request Mr. Anath to kindly put up the video message. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for giving me this opportunity to share with you some of the regulatory pathways of the FDA. We recognize, of course, India as one of our major sources of good quality and affordable drug products that come into the Philippines. And we would like to welcome all of you to enter the Philippine market. And let me explain to you how we do things. And hopefully, it will make it easier for everybody to navigate the regulatory pathway of the FDA. So let me share my slides with you. So the legal basis of regulation in the Philippines comes from Republic Act 3720. This created the Food, Drugs, and Devices and Cosmetics Act. So it's not only food and drugs that the FDA regulates, but there are other articles that we also that have to pass through our office. Then more recently, in 2009, we have Republic Act 9711, which is the Food and Drug Administration Act of 2009, which updated our regulatory activities a little. Our mandate at the FDA Philippines is to ensure the safety, the quality, and efficacy of all health products. So, like I said, we regulate food, drugs, cosmetics, medical devices, toys, and articles for children, and hazardous substances, especially the ones that are used in the home. And we do this through licensing, through registration, and of course, post-market surveillance after we register a product. And this is all done to ensure safety, efficacy, and quality. Now, the two main regulatory processes at the FDA are licensing and registration. For licensing, we license based on different categories, so depending on the activity that a company does. Now, you can be a drug manufacturer, a trader, a drug distributor, such as importers, exporters, and wholesalers. We also license drug outlets or retailers, such as pharmacies and retail outlet for non-prescription drugs, what we call the RON-PD, such as the convenience stores, for example, that sell OPD drugs. We also license contract research organizations. Now, a license is an authorization issued by the FDA covering a particular establishment. So once we, depending on what you apply for, the requirements will be different. We process it, and when the LTO is released, it will list down all the activities specified that you are allowed to do. Now, licensing is mandatory for all imported non-drug products. So if a company wants to bring in medicines into the Philippines, first you need to get a license as an importer. And then, of course, once you register a product, we have to make sure that you have a certification of good manufacturing practice. So, of course, we take, we accredit and we recognize PICS countries and GMPs from PICS countries. But if you don't have this, then you can apply for foreign GMP clearance from the Philippine FDA, and we do an inspection of the foreign drug manufacturing facility. So you can see this in our website. It's listed under Administrative Order 2013-0022. Now, once you have a license and you are ready, or you have a partner, for example, in the country who is licensed to import drugs, every product that will be imported and sold in the Philippines will need to be registered. And there are different manners or ways wherein you can register a drug or a vaccine. And there are several authorizations that we issue for such products. The first, of course, we're all familiar with the Certificate of Product Registration, which is a full marketing authorization. Then some products, especially during these very difficult times, can come in through a compassionate special permit. So we usually limit this to drugs that are not registered in the country, but are needed for life-saving illnesses like cancer, HIV/AIDS, and in this time of COVID-19, for emerging infectious diseases that are of public health emergencies. So these have to be registered in another country or the home country, or included in investigations currently ongoing for the treatment of diseases like COVID-19. And they can ask for a compassionate special permit for these drugs to be brought into the country. We also issued what we call a drug for emergency use pathway. So these are for new suppliers of old molecules that have been registered and used for years in the country. However, if there are certain shortages in the supply of these drugs, they can be registered very quickly through our DEU pathway. And then, of course, the emergency use authorization, which is now being used to allow entry and use of COVID-19 vaccines that are still under development. A certificate of product registration is the authorization for the manufacture, importation, export, sale, and distribution of pharmaceutical products that are determined to be safe, efficacious, and of good quality. So meaning, of course, all of the clinical trials are well known and they have been completed, and everything is all the requirements for a CPR application are ready. Now you can check this through our website. We have our downloadable forms at our Center for Drug Regulation and Research. And if you look at drug registration requirements, you can check now, you can get on the list of everything depending on what kind of drug or product, drug product you are that you want to register with us. So you just click on the links and it will give you the list of the requirements, and it will also tell you, how you are going to apply for a CPR with Philippine FDA. So the usual procedure is you prepare a dossier, and of course, all of the forms that you're going to submit is submitted to our FDA Action Center, or right now we all do this electronically with that email right there, and we wait for the acknowledgement receipt with the document tracking number. Once you get that acknowledgement receipt and you're going to be told that we are doing a pre-assessment, the pre-assessment will then, we have pre-assessors who will check if all of the submissions are complete. And once all those are complete, then you're going to get a reply saying that the pre-assessment has been satisfied or not satisfied, and then you need to submit more. And once the pre-assessment is okay, then you will be asked to pay for the application fee. After that, an initial evaluation will then commence. For initial applications, it takes at the most maximum of 180 days, after which the results will be emailed to you via email. And of course, the physical copy will be sent to you by courier delivery. A compassionate special permit, on the other hand, is for, like I said, drugs that are not yet registered locally but are badly needed by the Filipino patients, especially, like I said, the diseases that I told you earlier, cancer, HIV/AIDS, and life-threatening and public health emergency infections. So these are, it means that it's not going to be a marketing authorization, but it's going to be really very limited to the patients listed and to the number of doses that are requested. But you still need a representative or a company that has a license to operate as a drug importer in the Philippines, because that company will be the entity that will import the CSP drugs and then give them to the recipient patient or the hospital. Now, to make things easier for everybody, once you're applying for a CPR, the Philippine FDA does do what we call our collaborative reviews. So if you have a WHO pre-qualified pharmaceutical product or vaccine, we collaborate with the WHO and communicate with them so that we don't have to repeat everything all over again. So this makes it a lot faster, and definitely it will not go through the 180 days, especially if you have the WHO EUL. We also have facilitated registration pathways for drugs that have registration with stringent regulatory authorities. So we use alternative review process, such as what we call the abridged review or a verification review, wherein we communicate directly with the other stringent regulatory authorities, and this really helps hasten the approval process. Now, for drug products for emergency use, this is, like I said, the registration pathway for established drugs. And through our website, you can check this out. It's FDA Circular 2020-012. So we have a very abbreviated list of requirements. However, only certain products are what we call eligible for a DEU. So you have to check our issuances on what products can be part of a DEU. So these are COVID-19 products that are included in the clinical guidelines in the management of COVID in the Philippines, as approved by our specialty societies and the Department of Health. And if these are established drugs that have been used for many years, then they can apply for a DEU. Now, for new products, the FDA regulates also clinical trials for COVID-19 vaccines and COVID-19 drugs. Right now in the Philippines, we have 3 ongoing COVID-19 vaccine clinical trials, and we have a special mechanism for this. So we work with the Department of Science and Technology, where they have a vaccine expert panel that pre-screens companies that want to do clinical trials for COVID-19 vaccines in the Philippines. And then once it passes the screening of the vaccine expert panel, the protocols are then forwarded to the FDA and endorsed to us for the regulatory approval. And this takes about 2 to 3 weeks at the side of the FDA. And then, of course, as we all know, the other new authorization that is now being used in the Philippines, and of course being used all over the world, is the emergency use authorization for the vaccines that are still under development. We also have very limited requirements for this. No? So for the clinical trials, like I said, no, you have to go to the website of the FDA. We have a circular on that, FDA Circular 2020-029, and it tells you the way that you will have to go through. But like I said, we do screening with our work with the Department of Science and Technology. So if you have any concerns or anybody wants to conduct clinical trials for COVID-19, it would be okay to email us first and ask us for guidance, and then we can give you a short pathway, a description of the pathway that you have to go through. And for the emergency use authorization, this is something really new with the FDA. Before the COVID-19 pandemic, there was no such pathway in the Philippines. However, the president on December 1, 2020, signed an executive order granting the authority to the Director General of the FDA to issue emergency use authorizations for COVID-19 drugs and vaccines. And if you look at our website, you can look at the FDA Circular 2020-036, and that would be the guidelines on the issuance of the EUA. It lists the requirements and the process. And if the product or the vaccine has an EUA from a stringent regulatory authority or the WHO emergency use listing, then we are able to abbreviate that process into 21 days. However, if the product has an EUA in a non-stringent regulatory authority, we still accept applications as long as it has an EUA from the home country and from other countries. But then, we just cannot guarantee that 21-day processing because it might take a little longer because we will have to go through everything. No? Unlike if we have a WHO EUL or an SRA EUA, then we're usually able to get all of the evaluation reports and we don't have to repeat many of the steps that have been done previously by our counterparts. So hopefully that gives you an idea of how to do business with the FDA, how to apply for registration in our country, both during regular times and during this time of pandemic. And we welcome all who want to come into the market, and we can promise you that everything is treated professionally, objectively, and fairly at the Philippine FDA.
Thank you, Dr. Rolando and Rick Domingo, Director General FDA, to share that video message and detailed presentation. We now move forward. Moving forward, we have address on India-Philippines pharmaceutical trade. May I now invite Ms. Indu Nair, Director, Department of Commerce, to kindly give her address. Ma'am, I invite you. Thank you.
Thank you, Murali. Distinguished officials and industry representatives, DG Pharmaceutics, ladies and gentlemen, a very good afternoon to all of you. It gives me great pleasure to address this event in India-Philippines Cooperation Pharma sector. The continuing pandemic crisis has made health takes a center stage in our life. All our bilateral discussions are now centered on pharma cooperation. Philippines is an important trade partner of India. Both countries are making serious efforts to expand our bilateral trade. Health is one of the major pillars of further strengthening our partnership. As you are aware, quality and price competitiveness are the brand values of Indian pharmaceutical products. India's capabilities in pharmaceutical drugs and vaccine production, contract manufacturing, and medical training are well known. During the pandemic, we have distributed vaccines and essential medicines to a large number of countries who were in distress and who were in need, despite we ourselves were facing tremendous pressure at our domestic front. So since DG Pharmaceutical has already briefed us on the bilateral trade value and the global trade prospects of Indian pharma, I would skip that point. I will directly coming to India Philippines areas of cooperation. As DG has already briefed, India is the largest manufacturer of largest supplier of formulations to Philippines, and the volume of our exports has increased to $247 million in the current financial year up to January 2021. During the recent meeting, a joint working group held recently with between India and Philippines, we have identified some potential areas for collaboration to expand our trade in pharma and health sector. Basically, we have identified potential collaboration in APIs, formulations and vaccine development and PPE manufacturing, and collaborating in Philippines Pharmazone initiatives. India has good number of big companies who are into vaccine manufacturing and other manufacturing of formulations. As DG has highlighted, there are almost like 9 out of 25 global general companies are from India. And I have understood that Philippines have interest in production of veterinary vaccines and vaccines for African swine flu. If the need arises, we can organize a separate meeting for that, and we can take our discussions forward in this regard. Philippines have also proposed that during a joint working group, Philippines have also proposed cooperation in manufacturing of PPEs, and they have suggested that we can use Philippines as a base, as its base to manufacture our raw material. I would request industry to look into this suggestion and see whether we can work together on this front. Both countries can also explore investing in biosimilars, innovative medicines, new healthcare technologies, including artificial intelligence, data analytic, and digitization of healthcare. Promoting traditional medicine can also be an interesting area and which can also bring significant mutual benefit. Philippines may like to have a closer look at our Indian natural therapies such as Ayurveda and ancient medicines. The Philippines government is aiming to expand its universal coverage of health coverage. India can partner and support Philippines in this regard, and our affordable and price competitive medicine can bring down the cost of your initiative in this regard. And let me underscore the importance of private sector and enhanced B2B cooperation, because most of the trade in the pharma sector happens in the private sector. So unless the support of the private sector is ensured, they cannot be expanding of trade in pharma and health. I understand that there are one or two MOUs which Pharmacil has also already signed with with the Philippines industry. For example, I think there is an MOU with Philippines India Business Council, and there is an MOU with Philippines Pharma Procurement Incorporation (PPPI). And exporters, I request Pharmaxil and Philippines Business Council to make the exporters aware of the opportunities available and use this umbrella uh, 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 initiatives to take our trade forward. And both countries are also planning to sign an MOU on cooperation in medicinal activities, but I think that is at the advanced stage of discussion. ASEAN is also expected during our discussion with in the JWG. I understand that ASEAN is also expected to come up with ASEAN B labs and some MRAs to harmonize the regulations, medicinal standards and regulations. So I would request that Philippines and other ASEAN countries also take us on board and let us align our capabilities and your interest, and let us align the standardization and harmonize the product so that there is easy movement and easy facilitation of Indian drugs across the borders. Uh, and the bilateral efforts of, I mean, these are all at the bilateral efforts, but the bilateral efforts of the countries need to be supported by the industry. So I thank Pharmaxil for organizing this event, and we would be there to support whatever way you would want us to pitch in. And I thank the Embassy of India and the other members from the Philippines side who have contributed to this program. So I look forward to having a fruitful discussion, and I hope this will take us our trade to a new height. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, madam, for providing us an insight on India-Philippines trade and as well as the areas of cooperation and then the way forward. Now, moving on, we have a pre-recorded message from Mr. Jose A. Capistano. He is the Director of Philippines Pharma Procurement and Cooperation. Now, Mr. Anand, please play that.
I would like to greet the Pharmaceutical Export Promotion Council of India on your webinar on India-Philippines Pharmaceutical Cooperation. I remember fondly having attended the IPEX in June 2019 at Gujarat, Ahmedabad. Our agency, Philippine Pharma Procurement Incorporated, signed a Memorandum of Understanding with PharmExcel, which covers coordination and interfacing with government agencies in India and manufacturers who have products registered in the Philippines. Visit of Philippine pharmaceutical stakeholders to manufacturing units in India, as well as providing PPPI technical officials with training opportunities at the National Institute of Pharmaceutical Education and Research. I wish the success of this webinar and VMICE Meet, and I look forward to continuing India-Philippines pharmaceutical cooperation. Thank you.
Can I speak? Thank you very much, Mr. Jose Capistrano, for your message, and we will definitely work together in strengthening the Philippines pharma procurement between India and Philippines. Now, I invite Mr. Subarao, Vice President Exports of NATCO Pharma, to kindly give the presentation on anti-cancer drugs and India's strength. Sir, over to you. I invite Mr. Subarao to kindly do the presentation.
Yeah. Good morning and good afternoon to all the dignitaries, DG PharmExcel and all the delegates attending sessions. Can you hear my voice, please? Is it clear? Okay, thank you. Yeah. So today I'm going to give a presentation on anti-cancer drugs and India's strength in the field of oncology. So before I start, I would like to walk you through the major issue we are facing today is the global incidence of cancer. And so here I am presenting you a survey done by GloboCan in the year 2020, where it is showing the estimated number of new cases in 2020. And the slide here actually shows the worldwide cases for all males of all ages. As you notice, the major significant cancers which are affecting all males is lung cancer, which is roughly around 14.3%. The second biggest cancer which is affecting all males is prostate cancer, which is also about 14%. And then followed by colorectal cancers, stomach cancers, liver, and followed by bladder esophagus, and rest of all the other cancers put together. And if you notice, and at the bottom, it is affected roughly 10 million. It's not even rough, it's the statistics. 10 million males in the year 2020 have been affected by all these cancers. Okay. And similarly, for the cases in 2020, for all the females of all ages, the major afflicting cancer is breast cancer. And the percentage, as you notice, is about 24.5%. And the colorectal cancer is about 9.4%, followed by lung cancer, the cancer of cervix, uterus, and then thyroid, and the other stomach cancers. And again, once again, if you look at the statistics, there are about 9 million females of all age groups worldwide affected by the cancer. So when you look at these statistics, it is very clearly understood that it's almost like 1 in 5 women are actually affected by cancers or liable to be infected by or affected by cancer. So the incidence of cancer is growing multiple, and I think this is one of the biggest fight we need to fight against. And like we are all fighting COVID-19 today, the fight against cancer continues. And let us look at some of the remedies or what are the possible solutions we have. Yeah. In this slide, you could see a graphical representation of the human body, the different organs and different areas which are affected by cancer. Roughly, I would tell you like the bladder cancer, you have head and neck cancer, melanoma, which affects the skin, then you have breast cancer. So if you see the entire human body, male and female, almost all the organs, all these systems are getting affected by different types of cancer. And while you can see the other side, these are the list of therapies which are available, which are the medicines which are available. In a way, it shows that the medicines or there is a treatment option available for every type of cancer. When you look at in total, and like some of the cancers do have 1 or 2 drugs only, and most of these new therapies, in fact, I'm not sure whether it's clear. They're actually the monoclonal antibodies, popularly known as the MAPs, and the rest of it all fall under the small molecule therapies. So from this slide, we could see how cancer is affecting the entire human body and the different types of manifestations of cancer, and subsequently the kind of inventions or innovations which are going into the cancer therapies, be it diagnosis or the therapies. Okay, now the question comes, it seems that we have a lot of, even though we have so many cancers, it also shows that we have do a lot of therapies. Then why is the question on, what is that which is affecting us? And the next slide, I think I'm going to show you the answer. Okay, if you can look at this slide, this is typically from the US, the annual cost of new oncology treatments over a period of, I think the data was taken from year 2000 till 2018. For the last 18 to 20 years, the cancer therapy, typically could be any of the cancers, has grown from below $50,000 to more than about $150,000. And the cost remains the same in whether it's in the US or in the Philippines, it is converted into pesos. In India, it is converted into Indian rupees. The cost of the therapy remains exorbitantly high and not affordable to many people. And there is also reason from the innovator company's side, the reason why the therapies are so expensive is that there's always a risk of high failures in these kind of therapies. Some of them are targeted. There's a long duration of clinical trials in recruitment of patients and also conducting worldwide clinical studies. And they have a justification of the high cost of therapy. Now, this is from an innovator point of view. But when you look at the accessibility, I think these therapies and the costs are highly exorbitant. And so the only solution for us is to look at the generic space where a generic medicine comes at a very affordable price and it is highly accessible. Okay. So which are the other entry barriers? Even for a generic company, there are a lot of entry barriers for the manufacture of oncology products. You typically need dedicated API plants capable of handling cytotoxic substances. And you also need dedicated facilities for the finished dosage products. You need a clinical research organization capable of providing either healthy volunteers or patients required for doing the clinical studies, which are expensive and are also time-taking. And most of the oncology products tend to be low volume. So the viability of the product depends on the factors which are different from the other regular non-oncology products. So But fortunately, most of the Indian companies, the large Indian companies, have built capabilities to manufacture cytotoxic small molecules, APIs, and finished dosage. And Natco Pharma is one of the company in that. And companies like Intas, Biocon, Dr. Reddy's, Zydus, and many other Indian companies have now developed capabilities to manufacture biosimilars, which are used in cancer treatment. So recently we have picked up the IQA data, and for the Indian domestic oncology market, this is the ranking. In terms of sales, Natco takes the top position with 24 million sales, and then Intas, Dr. Reddy's, Sun Pharma, Zydus Cadila, Cipla, Ipca Labs, Fresenius. And there are a host of Indian companies which are into the oncology field and serving the oncology market in India. And the most significant thing about all these companies listed here, and I would actually say the Indian oncology companies are actually present in most territories, most geographies in the world. So it's basically, as we always say, India is the pharmacy of the world. So in the as being the pharmacy of the world in the oncology field, most Indian companies are able to offer the generic oncology products worldwide. And some of the suggestions for our Philippines partners. And so it's like partnering with Indian companies that are having capabilities can reduce the overall cost for Philippines. And for the regulatory bodies, if there is an acceptance on the bioequivalence studies and the product developments done for other regulated markets, it will reduce the time to market in Philippines. And companies can also work on technology transfer model to localize the production in Philippines. A brief introduction about Natco Pharma, and we were established in the year 1981, getting close to 40 years of incorporation very soon. We have about 5,000 employees with 8 manufacturing facilities, which are FDA approved, and all the 8 manufacturing facilities have distinctly meant for oncology and non-oncology products. Our products are sold in over 50 countries, and in the last couple of years, I would say close to 10 years from now, before we have started subsidiaries, our own subsidiaries in Brazil, in Canada, in Australia, in Singapore, and in Philippines. And current turnover is about 300 million in the global revenues. And we specialize, as in the name of Natco, if you look at the last 2 letters, we are a specialist in complex or generics and oncology. And finally, talking about our direct venture into Philippines, Natco Life Sciences Philippines is established in the year 2017, and we have a nationwide coverage of Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. And our office is located in Manila. And we have a very strong local leadership and dedicated team, which are actually interacting with the doctors and promoting our products. And you could see some of the products which are already introduced into the market. Geftinib, for example, handles for lung cancer, bendamustine for type of blood cancers, and letrozole used for maintenance therapy in breast cancer. And we also have a new product which is recently approved, and we are ready to launch it in the market. It's pegylated liposomal doxorubicin, which is a novel drug therapy using the liposomal technology. And we are the third company in Philippines to launch this product very soon. And as you could see, we bring quality and affordable treatment options to every Filipino in line with our mission of making specialty medicines accessible to all. And this is a mission statement given by our founder. And way back in 2003, we have started our oncology journey. And one thing I could say, I tell you now, in hindsight, that the world is fighting COVID-19, and you see the best of things coming out from India. The vaccine manufacturers, vaccines are being manufactured, vaccines are being invented here. And similarly, the fight against cancer is not going to stop. And as you see, as I've shown you in my first slides, the incidence of cancer is increasing day by day for various reasons. And the Indian pharma industry together is poised to fight and join hands in this fight against cancer globally. And then I'm very proud to be in that industry, and where we are able to give the accessible and affordable medicines in cancer treatment. Thank you.
Sir, thank you so much, Mr. Subbarao. For making it, though it is a last minute request from us. Thank you so much for considering our request and making the presentation. It is very informative, and then there are areas of cooperation where we can look at India and Philippines, cooperating with each other in terms of manufacturing and production. So moving forward, we have a video message from Dr. Lloyd, who is the President, Philippines Chamber of Commerce of the pharmaceutical industry. Nhat, please post that message.
Good day to all. In behalf of Philippine Chamber of Pharmaceutical Industries, I wish to congratulate the organizers from Pharmaxil in creating and initiating this event. I'm very sure that for all those attending, that this can give value added to their business and thereby creating improvements and benefits to our existing healthcare here in the Philippines. So again, thank you very much. And despite of even having a pandemic, you're able to execute such activity. Good day to all.
Thank you very much, Dr. Lloyd, for President, for that message. And we would, going forward, we will work with you. Now we have another message from Mr. Hichino, Vice President for Supply Group of PPMA, which is Philippines Pharmaceutical Manufacturers Association. And Mr. Anand, please put up the message.
Greetings from the Philippines. I'm Ihinio Porti Jr., Vice President of Pascual Laboratories and currently the President of Philippine Pharmaceutical Manufacturers Association. I would like to thank Pharmaxil for inviting me to this event as a representative of Philippine Pharmaceutical Manufacturers Association. And I would like also to congratulate the team who are putting this event together, the virtual pharma webinar and B2B meeting by India and ASEAN, and that will be held on March 15 to 22. We are excited to participate in this event considering that Philippine pharma industry is also big. In fact, it's the third biggest pharma industry in Southeast Asia, and in the past 3 years, it posted the second highest growth in the pharma industry in Southeast Asia. With the implementation of the Universal Healthcare Program, the pharma industry here in the Philippines can easily double in the next 5 years. There is a push from the government to support the local manufacturer, so there would be a great opportunity for us doing business together in the aspect of the supply of APIs, excipients, and even bulk pharmaceutical products. Also in the aspect of product testing or clinical testing, and a lot other things related to pharma industry. So we are looking forward to active participation in this event. Again, thank you and congratulations.
Thank you very much, Mr. Regino, for sharing your message. And we will look forward to working with PPMA as well. Now I invite His Excellency Mr. Shambhu S. Kumaran to kindly give his concluding remarks. Sir, I invite you to kindly give your concluding remarks. Thank you.
Well, very good afternoon to all of you from Manila. I want to thank the Pharmaxil for taking this initiative to set up this conversation, and I welcome very strongly this engagement with the Philippines. As some of you may be aware, the Philippines is India's largest pharma market in ASEAN. In fact, we are the only, Philippines is the only top 10 country in terms of value for Indian pharma. It's among the top 10 worldwide and is about 1/3 of India's pharma exports to ASEAN countries. So really very, very important that we maintain and expand, as we've been doing over the past few years, our presence in this extremely important, very valuable market. It's an overall market of about $1.5 billion in terms of pharma imports. Indian companies are doing well. We are the single largest source, but I do believe that there is considerable scope for enhancement of our presence here. I want to thank DG FDA, DG Domingo, for accepting our kind invitation and addressing this event. I think his presence here is very reassuring. I've had more than one meeting with him in the few months that I've been here, and I found him to be extremely knowledgeable and extremely supportive of greater Indian engagement in the Philippines. In my interactions with him, I have noticed a few issues that I would perhaps want to highlight for some of our pharma companies. Firstly, he was very categorical in terms of his clear interest. When I mentioned to him the long delays in clearing the dossiers, his main response was that they're really interested in looking at new molecules being introduced in the market. In terms of molecules where there's already a considerable number of suppliers, they do tend to deprioritize that. So I would really urge all of you to look at that element as part of your marketing strategy. Secondly, some of you, I don't want to take any names, but there was one large Indian company which approached the embassy saying that their dossiers were pending for more than 2 years. We took it up very strongly with the FDA recently. And DG then came back to me to say that, they have given the same lot numbers in all the applications. I would really request that the company should pay due attention in terms of the technical compliance requirements, because the Philippines is a very, developed regulatory authority. They do have some capacity constraints, but our company should meet the compliance requirements and should focus very clearly on doing that. The other bit of insight that I could glean from him is also that there is a degree of interest. When I was speaking to the health minister, the health secretary here just earlier this week, he specifically referred to anti-cancer medication. In the Philippines, there is great appreciation of the fact that Indian pharma has contributed to lowering the prices of medication for chronic ailments. I think there is acknowledgement of the excellent quality that we offer, the value, the affordability and quality combination. We have a very good presence in the market. A lot of Indian companies have marketing offices here. And clearly, one area of potential growth is in terms of bringing in new molecules, especially to do with chronic illnesses. So these are some of the insights that I have in terms of the regulatory approach in the Philippines. From the embassy perspective itself, we've been having a lot of engagement with the pharmaceutical companies here. Under the banner of the India Business Forum, there is a vertical on pharmaceuticals. I've personally met the heads of nearly all of the companies, and I find that there's a lot of energy and enthusiasm. In my engagement with the government here, there is reciprocal interest. In recent days, this interest has concentrated itself considerably on the vaccines issue. We are working very closely with the Philippine regulatory authorities to obtain the regulatory clearance, the emergency use approval for Bharat Biotech's Covaxin. I'm very hopeful that it will come through. And that will be another important milestone in the pharmaceutical engagement between our two countries. There is also the issue, which is a long-term issue. It's not an issue that we can resolve in the near or medium term. But there is interest in the Philippines, as in India, to have some domestic manufacturing capacities. I have responded along the lines that unless there was a sustainable commercial model wherein companies who invest in manufacturing get some preferential pathway for public procurement, it will be very difficult to do so. But I do think there may be inorganic opportunities, partnerships, innovative partnerships, to look at some part of the value chain being carried out in the Philippines. I leave that to all of you to look at how you would like to progress that. But definitely, it will be an important value addition, both from a Philippines perspective, because the Philippines Economic Zone, for example, the zone PEZA, is setting up a new pharma zone. I don't see how such a zone can be successful without Indian pharmaceutical participation. So I would like to advise all of you to watch that space. As I said, it's not a near-term option, but something that we look at in the medium to long term. Lastly, my colleague Nishikant Singh is part of this meeting. And I also noticed that our director from Department of Commerce, Ms. Indu Nair, is here. I think that reflects the strength of commitment of the Government of India and the Embassy to support all of you small and medium companies in your efforts here. Please do consider us a friend and a partner as you move towards greater engagement with the Philippines. We are here to back you. We are here to support you in any way possible. Thank you very much for this opportunity, and I wish the conference all success.
Thank you very much, His Excellency, for taking time and joining us and offering the concluding remarks. Moving forward, Nishikant, who is the first secretary, who would be giving us the vote of thanks. Sir, I would like to say that with your support, we could come up till here, and then it should not have been possible. Then. To have this many speakers and this many messages. So thank you so much. Now I request Mr. Nishikant, First Secretary, to kindly give his vote of thanks, to kindly offer vote of thanks.
Yeah, many thanks to Pharmaxil for organizing this event, and I would like to extend my my heartfelt gratitude to the DG Food and Drug Administration Philippines for sparing his valuable time to give an insight on the regulatory updates in Philippines, and the Ambassador of India to the Philippines for sparing his valuable time for giving a concluding remarks for this event. And I would also like to extend my gratitude to the President of Philippine Pharmaceutical Manufacturer Association, the Philippine Chamber of Pharmaceutical Industry, and Philippine Pharma Procurement Incorporated for giving their valuable time and for sharing their videos and their messages for this event. And I also would like to extend my thanks to Mr. Subbarao, Vice President, NATCO Pharma, for giving an excellent presentation on the prospective anti-cancer drugs and the significant presence in the Philippines. And I would also like to extend my thanks to Ms. Indu Nair, Director, Department of Commerce in the Government of India, for giving a very valuable insight on the overall framework of the India-Philippines Pharmaceutical Cooperation and the latest meeting on the GWGTI and the discussions which were held in that meeting. And at the end, I would like to extend my thanks to Mr. Murli Krishna and Pharmaceutical for organizing this excellent event. And as Ambassador has told, we reiterate that from the mission side, we would continue to extend our support to the Indian pharma company in this excellent journey of the bilateral cooperation in the sector of pharma and health. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nishkanti, First Secretary, Embassy of India, for proposing vote of thanks. Now we are done with the session 1, which is a webinar, and then moving forward, we have session 2, which is a B2B meetings. I request everyone, the companies from India side and Philippines side, to kindly engage yourself in B2B meetings till 7 p.m. of Philippines time and 4:30 p.m. of Indian Standard Time. Thank you so much for joining us and making it a successful event. Thank you so much once again.